Well, hello, hotties. I hope that you are having a week as incredible, sexy, amazing, enticing, and fucking delectable as you are. I am excited, and you should be excited because today we are talking about how you can, do the creative direction of your business, how you can be a creative director within your business if you feel like that you do not have a creative bone within your body, and if your method so far has been to duplicate what other people have done, how you actually can come up and create your own process. Now, before we get into the thick of today's episode, I am doing something fun next week. So if you have not already registered, make sure that you register for You Are the Trend. This is the first workshop in my sexy little workshop series that is completely free, allow 90 minutes, and it is going to be incredible if you are feeling, let's just say, creatively constipated within your business, or you feel like that you're not really getting out ideas or doing things within your business that feel like it's an extension of you. You feel like that you're kind of just a duplicate of someone else, and in turn you've become this faded photocopy. We are going to fuck that right off, and I'm going to give you the process so you become the trend. But today, let's just say that this is going to build on from that. So newsflash, the creative direction in your business is one of the most important things that you can do, because I think a lot of us really rely so heavily on getting the messaging right. I see this a lot. There is a real obsession with the messaging, but I think that we can forget how the visuals can be so emotive that, if we think about the messaging, someone has to stop and they have to read it, compared to how the whole visuals and the whole package looks. Someone can just stop and they want to buy it immediately. It's like if they look at magazines, what is originally going to draw them to pick a magazine up or a book on the shelf is how the design, how the cover looks, how everything is kind of working together. Then they'll read the words. And I think that it's something in business that is overlooked quite heavily. And I think what a lot of people do is their method for the creative direction in their business oftentimes comes from what they think that they should do and then what other people are doing. The problem is with that is you go to places like Instagram, and if you're following a lot of people within a particular industry, there is a chance that they all have a really similar aesthetic. One of the problems as well is, especially if you've done things in a particular way, it's like you do things and it looks the same, is especially if you're doing a really like a new fun project. A problem is going to be if you don't do anything new with a creative direction is it's not really going to stand out. Like if you go to the effort of creating a brand new offering that you know is going to explode, and the whole creative direction and the visuals look like your entire brand and everything that you've done. The problem is this is sometimes where people scroll past it because there's no pattern interrupt compared to what they expect. So if you are feeling like that you want to do a bit of a rebrand within your business, or you're going to relaunch an offer, or you're going to create something new, this is where considering the creative direction of the project and putting a bit more effort into this can really work wonders, because it can get people, especially if they've become a bit complacent with your brand, they're used to scrolling past it, it does get them to stop and pay attention. And as I was rolling out this project, we had a little teaser video series. So there were 3 videos, and then I put out some images. The response that I had just from these little teasers, it's like it kind of just, oh my God, I'm stuck. It's like it kind of just reinvigorated my audience that, I know that they like what I do, but sometimes they just need something to get a bit excited about, because maybe the stuff that you're doing is really good, but the fact that we haven't actually updated any of our visuals to match is why people are kind of scrolling past it. You can go back and you can look at your website and your Instagram feed and ask yourself, am I trying to launch new offers, products, and services with an outdated version of myself, with outdated photos that I'm just trying to reuse because I'm trying to make it easy? And I'm all about ease in my business, but at the same time, I'm also about honoring the work. I have a bit of an example here. I released back in 2022 an offering called Dial a Virgo. And it's so funny that the offer was really short-lived. It was this text-based SMS business advice, where as soon as I had an idea drop in, I could voice note it and send it out like a little private podcast that was delivered via SMS. And to launch this, I wanted to have this photo shoot, which was I'm going to say late 70s, early 80s, LA, sex hotline, like neon pink. Like I knew exactly how I wanted the visuals to look. And it's really interesting that that offer lasted for about 2 months, but the images from that is now the headshot that I use in my co-working space. When I go downstairs and I see everyone's business on the board, I stand out immediately. This is where sometimes when you do really good creative work, you may feel that that actually outlives the offer, because that is what that's what people will remember. Okay. And this has been really interesting for me, that sometimes I've done something and the work hasn't been that impactful, but the creative direction within the project has been so impactful, because even if people haven't wanted the thing that I'm selling, it's made them interested in my whole brand, because it's such a circuit breaker about what they're used to seeing. And I think that that's the thing. If you feel like this is just too much, there is always return on investment when you commit to creativity within your business. One, you are going to get ROI within yourself and your own process. If you feel like that you have been stuck with creation and content, this is just going to reinvigorate your business. You're going to have new ideas come through. It's also going to get more people to pay attention, new people to pay attention, existing clients that maybe have just kind of gotten a bit complacent with what you're doing. I think the best part is you're going to feel like that there's been some new energy within your business. You're going to be invigorated and you're going to be more likely to show up. And you see this quite a lot when people will get a new website, they get new photos, and they want to put it out there. And I want you to think about it that way. It's like, if you ever feel like that you don't want to promote what you're doing and you're conscious of putting stuff out on Instagram, you don't want to promote your website, is it because you think it's shit? Is it because you think that it's an outdated version of you, that it doesn't represent the business that you have now or the business that you're growing into? The first step of this whole process is to forget about your customer. If you are a personal brand, your creative direction is an extension of you, and usually it's who you're growing into. Where I think that sometimes we can get this muddled with our customer is, it's like, what is going to attract our customer is us being in our own authentic expression, where we are being so us, we are being so ourselves. Our customers can see that, and that is magnetic. We are not trying to be anyone but us and our higher self, as wanky as that sounds. And I think because of that, that is really magnetic. You know, for me with this project, we went with a bit of a Mad Men theme. I really lent into this archival aesthetic with like a late 60s feel, same with all of the music as well. And people have loved that. And the thing is, when I was doing this, I wasn't trying to be anyone that I knew that my customer was liking. For me, I was like, I want this to be an expression of myself. And a different way to look at this, it's like, if you want to date and you want to meet someone incredible, you don't want to do things to get men to like you. You want to be the best version of you that you can be. And that is fucking magnetic. Just to build on this whole fuck your customer is, I think if you do have a personal brand, all of your content, all of your creative direction forms your body of work. And you don't want to look back thinking that you've shown up in a particular way so that someone would be interested, because then what you start to do is you start to resent the project and you start to resent the customer. Bigger businesses, obviously, when they do their creative direction, they do consider their customer. But for me, I feel that the most successful personal brands lean into something that feels like it is their deepest expression, and then because of that, people get attracted to that. I guess the first step here is that you want to make sure that you have your identity crafted. We've got some podcast episodes on this around, you know, crafting a new identity, stepping into this new level of you and having standards to match. So once you're really clear on who you are and what you want, what you need to then determine is like, what is the purpose of what you're doing? Like, is this going to be to launch a new offer? Are you going to rebrand? Are you going to relaunch your podcast or your website? Or you're going to like refresh your website? You want to bring some new energy into your business? Or do you have a new offer coming out? So the first step is you want to be really clear on what the project is. So for me and my example, we had a 9-part workshop series called the Professional Babe Archives. And I wanted to create like a lot of awareness around that. I wanted people who were kind of like circling me to come in my world, have a Peter experience, and hopefully become a customer, or hopefully be like, this is incredible. All of my friends need to know about this. So that's what you want to think about. What is this for? And then we want to think about what outcome do we want to have from this? Now, well, it's really the second step. First step is getting clear on you, getting in your energy, and ideally we want to stay there regularly. And then the second step is like, what is the project? What is the outcome? Then when we've done that, then we need to look at our inspiration, and we want to inspiration gather. Now, this is something that I would recommend that you do regularly. And the reason being is that I think in online business, I feel sometimes we can get stuck in a vacuum. You know, if you're a business coach, there's a chance that you follow other business coaches and you look at other business coaches being like, how can they business coach better than me? We don't want to do that. What we want to do is we want to kind of like be tapped in like a little Spider-Man with our little web into all of our different inspiration sources. And this is going to look very different for every single business, because you are uniquely you and you are going to be inspired by so many different things. So what we can look at here is the whole sensory experience. Now, oftentimes when you talk about inspiration, people will talk about things like Pinterest, which is great, or magazines, which is incredible. But I want to present to you a couple of different ideas. So for me, I love the 60s. I love that era. I love the color and the styling and the angles of how they shot the films and the music. Like, it was very beautiful and cinematic and arty. So I love Euro cinema from the 60s. I love Morricone's soundtracks. I love the drama. Of course, I love Pinterest. I love old magazines. And, you know, this is something where maybe you want to get on Facebook Marketplace. And if you love magazines, you can just go and see if someone's giving them away or selling them for cheap. Maybe for you, it's a particular TV show. Something as well is you'll find, and maybe you're not conscious of this, but you will be attracted to particular brands and particular stores because of how they make you feel. Stores are a perfect example of that, because someone has gone to the effort to curate a whole feeling or a vibe, and that's usually what you're attracted to. So what you want to work out are, what are your inspiration sources? And then from here, I would recommend creating some kind of mood board. Now, you can use whatever you like. If you have a particular software, you can use Pinterest, you can put stuff together on Canva. But what you want to do is, we're thinking about this project, we're thinking about like what currently inspires us. And what you want to start to do is into what you feel inspired by, not feeling like this needs to be the exact finished project. And what I mean by that is, when I wanted to do something around, like, we're going back to the archives, my original idea was something Y2K. I was like, do we do like a little mixtape, or like, you know, it's like the greatest hits tour? And what I did is I lent into that. And on my Pinterest, I had a lot of this like Y2K stuff. And I started to just gather images that felt like this could emulate a direction of where we wanted to go. This was something as well that I will say, you're not going to be able to knock this over in an afternoon. So if you feel like that you're like, I need to get this done in half a day, really good creative direction. It is a process. It's the creative process. And we can't just like click our fingers and it's done. It's sometimes something that is going to take a little bit longer than we would like. And the cool thing is with this, you'll find that you will grow within yourself. And if you're anything like me, there becomes this like deep sense of satisfaction when you feel like that you have, it's almost like, you know what, I almost see this like, it's like if you're creating an offer, you're creating a thing, and then you've got the whole creative process, that's like a separate independent offer. And you think about it, the offer that you're selling or whatever you're selling is where your clients grow. The creative process and the creative direction is where you have your growth. So because of that, just allow things to kind of form and take their time. What I did here is, with this like little Y2K theme, you know, I had my Pinterest board and I was just looking at stuff on Pinterest. I was looking at what already exists, or what do I feel inspired by? And what you want to do in this phase is not question too much around what is coming out. I want you to see this. It's like, you know, if you've ever created a vision board before, the first step of creating a vision board is looking at what inspires you, and it's ripping pages out of magazines. Not everything that you rip out of that magazine will end up on that vision board, but the first part is just being like, what is currently exciting me creatively, or what is getting me feeling curious or excited, or what feels really emotive. Do not have judgment, because the first part is just feeling like, what are our inspiration sources and how can we tap into that? So if you feel like that you have no style whatsoever, whatever, or if you're like, I'm really bad at this, all you are going to think about is, what do I like? And what I want you to do is I want you to forget about whatever, like the project that you're doing for the minute. So what I mean by this is quite often when, like if we look at someone doing a business photo shoot, they will think, I'm doing a business photo shoot, so I need to look at business things. And that's where they get stuck, because they kind of put themselves in a box of how they think things should look. Just let that go for a second. And I want you to think about what actually inspires me. And you may find that you're like, oh, I just love nature, or I love the garden. Great, lean into that. Because the thing is, what you're doing is you're just starting to gather some inspiration of visuals and feelings. And then what you're going to do is we're going to tie everything together. So where I think that sometimes things feel clunky is we think about business shoot and then we try to fit that into the box of what we want and add these little elements, and it doesn't work out like that. I wrote some notes here as well around like what is good to do when you start to have your inspiration sources and what you're leaning into is you can start to get like Claude or ChatGPT to analyze this. Like you can take a screenshot or you can put in some images and you can say, you know, I feel really inspired by this image. Like, can you describe it back to me? Or if I wanted to find more images with this aesthetic, what words would I search for? Or what feeling? Or what sounds? How would it taste? What smells? Like really spell out like a full sensory experience for me so I can go and hunt for more assets and creative like this. What I found is, you know, I didn't feed stuff into chat, but I looked at why I felt really inspired by this Y2K era. And the reason that I loved it is it felt like a time capsule, and it felt like something that it was quite like nostalgic. And when I thought about that, I was really thinking about, you know, well, what is nostalgic? Like, what do I love? It's really funny that when I was on Pinterest, it was like a folder and there was like a little CD coming out of it. And I'm like, oh, I like this little like folder. It looks quite old. And then I clicked in and I was like, what are the related images? And there was this folder of with like a picture of Donald Trump on the front and something that said confidential. And I was like, oh, I really like that. And I thought about it more. And then I thought about like an archive box in this Mad Men era. What I did from here is I looked at it and I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, what are the words? Like, we've got like archival. I think about like museum documentation or high-end fashion. What I then did is I completely revamped my Pinterest board. I removed all of the Y2K stuff off, and there started to be a really clear theme. You want to get clear on this now, because as soon as you bring people in or you're parting with money, you want to make sure that you're really clear on the direction so that you don't get pictures back and you're like, why did I do that? I don't even like this. That's not even me. So allow this stage to take as long as it needs to. I would say if I was to add like how many hours, I would probably say I spent maybe 6 to 8 hours exploring this before I really settled on an idea. What you also can do here, you also can start to build your brand's vocabulary. So what you'll find is as you're feeding images into AI, be really conscious of the words that it uses. So when you look at everything together, it's like the copy and the words and the colors and the feeling, it's like packaged together perfectly. Nothing kind of feels like it's like, it feels like the odd one out. So what you should have now is you should have a mood board. And then from that mood board, you want to start to kind of unpack some words about what you've written down and the brand inspiration. Let me just open this here. I actually got a design studio on board. And because of that, I thought, let me create a bit of a briefing document so that I feel like that everything is kind of like, if I can't communicate this with someone, there is no way that they're going to be able to design it. And, you know, for that reason, I had to be really clear on how I wanted everything to look. But what I created was a bit of a briefing document. And I even made sure that the briefing document, how it was formatted, you know, I used like, Courier New, for the font. And it had the same feeling as it did the project that we would be creating. And what I started to do, even before I knew the assets that I wanted to create, the first step was what we covered in our first step, which was the project overview. So I wrote this here. We are launching the Professional Babe Archives, a curated collection of nine of my most successful workshops, reimagined and relaunched every 1 to 2 weeks. The desired aesthetic draws inspiration from luxury publications, Polaroid photography, and archival level documentation. The goal for the visuals is no hint of business, where consultants and coaches have hyper-colored and fluoro clusterfucks and 7 figures in 7 days promises. The visuals and messaging will be a circuit breaker from the usual shit you see. And then I unpacked it even further. So I wrote down the brand inspiration. The visual direction should feel premium, editorial, and archival while maintaining the professional babe brand voice. We want to convey that these workshops are valuable, timeless, and sexy like Tom Ford era Gucci. And then what I did here is I unpacked the brand inspiration. So between both of these, it's like people should understand what we're doing and how it's going to look. And you know, my brand inspiration was high-end fashion editorials like Violet Grey and Violette FR, museum archive documentation, luxury brand catalogs, and editorial Polaroids. And then what I did is I had my visual references on my Pinterest. And you know, even hearing this now, you should get an idea of how this should look, how this feels. You can even hear this in the tone, how it's written, and then you're looking at the mood board. And then what you should think about is it's like, this is where you start to see the project come together. Now, I did this because I had briefed a company, but I can 10 out of 10 recommend, you know, having kind of a briefing document, even if it's just for yourself. So then when you've got that worked out, you're going to let this sit for a bit and allow yourself to kind of change your mind and start to see like, what are you really drawn to? Like if we're looking at the campaign and everything that you've created as a whole, like what is standing out? Why is it standing out? What are you attracted to? Is there a particular like aesthetic that you like, or like what feels good? And for me within my mood board, there are a couple of images that I really love. And I got curious on how can I make them my own? What would this look like? What the next step is, it's around determining like what assets you actually need to create and then what the process is going to look like. So what I mean by that is for us, we had a process where it was really around like the teasing, then the announcing, and then the releasing of the thing. So it's like, how can we tease it? How can we kind of set the tone of what's coming? Then how can we announce it with some really strong creative? And then what's it going to look like when it's released? What does that look like? And maybe you're going to have like a similar format for, you know, your creative project. It's like, what assets do you actually need for this project? So we think back to step one, what are we creating? How are we creating it? What do you need? So for me with this particular project, we needed some teaser assets, then we needed a campaign image, and then we needed the workshop imagery. And everything kind of had to work together. And when I got clear on that, then that was added into the briefing document. So you can think here about your creative project and get clear on, okay, cool, for this to be a success, what do we need? And then like, do we need like a little campaign shot? Do we need video? And write all of this down, get this all out, because what then you're doing is it's like, we've just moved into that next step where we have our inspiration and then we're determining, okay, cool, how is this inspiration going to be conveyed within the assets? Like, you know, if we're thinking about this project, what is this now going to look like? And this is going to be so different for every business. So it's like, if we were to ever relaunch the podcast, you know, I would need like a new little campaign cover shot. We would need some stuff for Instagram to announce it. Maybe we need some new visuals on the website. So this is where you're getting clear around where everything is going to end up and kind of what you're thinking that you would need. Now, this is where you can draw inspiration from other people. You can look at what they've done and kind of what assets they've needed. So it's going to give you an idea of them, what you need. And then what you're going to do is ask yourself how the mood board that you have created can translate into the assets that you need to have. And again, I haven't used chat or like Claude for this, but this is where, you know, use AI to kind of help you as your little business bestie to reflect stuff back to you. So it's like, hey, Claude, here's our mood board. Here is what I'm thinking. Here is like our brand inspiration and what we want. Here is what I'm thinking what we need, like the assets that we have to create. How could this look? And then notice what comes up. And again, go with that gut feeling if you have that of yes, this feels good, or no, I don't like this. Or use your intuition of, yeah, I feel like this is a good path to follow. Now, you know, AI, especially if you are doing shoots or maybe you're doing a shoot yourself, it has just gotten so advanced where if you are like, I need to do a photo shoot and this is my brand inspiration and this is what I need, can you kind of give me a bit of a shot list on all of the shots that you think that I should create? And it will come up with a big list of everything that you have to do. So again, if this is something where this feels so new to you and you're like, I don't have a creative bone in my body, you are lucky now that we actually have tools to help us, channel what we do and be our little creative BFF to help us get the results we want. And then what you're going to do is you are going to add this to your briefing document. So your little document should have your project overview, your brand inspiration, anything about the process that you're doing. And again, even if you do not have a team, if you are not bringing in like your web designer to create assets or a photographer, even just for yourself to have this so you know what the fuck you're doing is great. But this also then becomes a document that you can either look back on, or if you work with clients and they're like, I'm going to do this, you can show them the process that you've gone through to create this yourself. What I want you to think about as well with this, and just a little note on that, I think what actually makes a project incredible are the micro moments within the project. I think if we're thinking about stuff from a business shoot, we may think about what we're wearing and how our hair is going to be and like what poses we're going to have. And if we see an image and we're like, we want to execute that. But what we want to think about as well are the little micro moments and the feelings, the stuff that feels almost forgotten, but it just makes it really important. And with this particular project, I have a little prop phone. I wanted to go and get a vintage archive box. We had some paper. I also used my workspace. And what I did with these little moments is I did a bit of a walkthrough on my workspace and I was just looking for things that stood out. So for example, like we've got behind me this beautiful, I think it's fluted glass, I think it's called. I love that. And I love when people walk past, it just creates this pattern. Maybe for you, it's thinking about lighting. And what you want to do is you want to look for little elements that people potentially overlook because they're focused on the power poses or how someone's standing or what you're wearing. And this is the stuff, especially if you want to have pictures on your website or in the campaigns where not everything is you, where you've got these little moments that have been photographed that you can use for little backgrounds or filler photos, right? So write down some stuff about that as well. So when we've got that, this is where I would recommend having a little bit of a break before you go into the execution. So the creation, sleep on it at least before you go and do this, because you may find that you have forgotten stuff. Give everything a read. And then from here, this is when you'll execute it. So if you are executing it yourself, I've got a professional Canon camera. I have like a Fuji Polaroid camera. I've got my phone. I also use Canva. What I would say is just work with what you have. Don't feel that you need to go and buy something. Like only recently I updated my phone from an iPhone 11 to an iPhone 16. I am the queen of just using what I have until it breaks and then I will upgrade. Or maybe you're working with a designer. Incredible. But you want to just have all of your assets that you have all of your tech. And then from here, you want to go about creating the thing. Now, what I will say is remember that I feel like when it comes to kind of getting your creative inspiration into the project, I kind of see this looking like making pancakes. The first pancake may be a bit of a flop. You're going to have to do a couple before you kind of get into the rhythm of things. So if you're creating your own pictures or you're doing a shoot with someone, just allow the process to happen where you're kind of both warming up and feeling into it. And it's not like you have to have perfection. This is bang on. If you have your assets there, this is where I like to print stuff out. So I like to have my little briefing document. I like to have the images and I always will reflect back on that. And again, it's like I said, if you have like a bit of a shot list that you need or some assets that you need, have all of this written down so you know what you actually need to have. And I think, what I want to say is my best work in the shoot when I did this Dial a Virgo shoot where it's my headshot now, that came about from me saying, let me just mess around and see what I come up with. I didn't plan on creating something really perfect. I didn't put pressure on it working out. I was like, let me just mess around. And I think that if you are committed to just enjoying the process and seeing what happens, you will have a much better result than feeling like that you are gripping onto something so tight where this has to work. Like just have fun, enjoy the process. And even if you don't, you're now going to know what to do next time. Like I don't have this figured out all ahead of time. I have an idea that I want to do. I have a direction that I want to head. And then from there, I just will look and see, is this kind of back to meeting the brief? So you'll notice here that everything that I'm doing is always coming back to that brief. And that's really my process on how I am, I guess, a creative director in my business. And hopefully in there's some stuff that you can learn as well. I think that you'll be pleasantly surprised with, do this a couple of times. It's going to start to feel a bit easier. And who knows, you may even find that you thought that you were never a creative person, and you were. You just needed a bit of a process to follow it. So hopefully this helps. And, if you have used these tips and you've gotten a really good result, please let me know about it. If you haven't already, please check out the Professional Babe archives and make sure you come along to an event or two, or ideally all of them. If you love all things creative, and if you are feeling a bit creatively constipated, make sure to come to You Are the Trend. The next one, what's the next one? Let me just give you a hint while you're here. Little podcast perks. You know what? I'm going to tell you the next two. The next one is How to Have a Hot Business. So this is going to be my process for building businesses, my goals process. So if you are like, I want to make $1 million, great, we're going to cover that. If you want to make, I want to make a $20,000 a month, or I want to do this, I'm going to teach you my process that can be applied to any business. And that is on the 13th of May. And then the next one is we've got an email marketing intro, bulletproof your marketing and make email your bitch. And that is on May 27th. So if you are new to email marketing, that is going to be fantastic. And we've got some really fun extra workshops that are happening. So hottie, I love this. I love you. I love you more than, oh my God, I love you more than my beautiful mom. I have been a bit, I don't want to say stressed, but I feel like I've just got a bit on my plate. And sometimes when I have a bit on my plate, it can feel like a little bit too much. And how good are mums? Because I feel like she sensed that. And she today went and she cleaned my house for me. I live by myself and everything relies on me. But today I've got my beautiful mum cleaning my home, and we are going out to dinner. We're going to one of my favorite French restaurants. French food is my favorite cuisine. And I'm so excited about that. So that's in like an hour and a half. So I love you more than that. I love you more than my lip gloss. Actually, it's lipstick. I love you more than my lipstick. I love you more than, actually, I'm in the runway to ovulation today. And my hair feels good. My skin feels good. The vibe is good. So I love you more than that. I love you more than the good people that I have in my life. I think some of my friends have known that this week I've been feeling a bit tender, and I love that they have been checking in on me. It feels good to be surrounded by good people, but I remind myself, bitch, you're a good person too. Of course, these people are going to be attracted to you. So I love you more than that. And I love you more than the beautiful weather that we had in the month of April. I feel like some of you were like, oh God, the weather. But no, like I remember last April here was fucking freezing, and we have just had standout, sensational, sexy weather. Can't complain. It is the last day in April, and it was just such a beautiful, beautiful month. So I love you more than that. Hot stuff. I will see you on the next episode. Go get it. Go create something creative. I love you. And I don't know, go be sexy. Go flirt with someone. That's the call to action of this episode. Bye.